SLT speed up සවාරිය සමගින් සද්දන්ත වාසි රැල්ලක්. අලුත් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සබඳතා සඳහා පළමු මාස දෙක පුරා data double speed up with SLT.
Making headlines on First at 9. Matters of the FTA. Minister of International Trade reveals when the Singapore FTA comes into effect. The joint opposition, however, questions the government's conviction.
The very fact that government has thought it necessary to appoint a high-powered committee necessarily means that the government is having second thought.
Provisions for a third term. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa intends to consult the Supreme Court over eligibility to contest the presidential election. Battle in the skies. All set for TV Derana Loke Sahalokeo International Kite Festival to fill the skies tomorrow. Slippery slope. Dr. Nalika Gudheva warns that Colombo is slipping down on the Global Livability Index.
If it goes down one more point, Colombo will be amongst the 10 worst cities in the whole world.
Death of a Nobel laureate. Former Secretary General of the United Nations Kofi Annan passes away. A very good evening to you and welcome to First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katrina Chang. Now on to our top story tonight. Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samaravikrama insists that the free trade agreement the government signed with Singapore does not require parliamentary approval. Responding to questions raised by members of the media, following a function held in Kurunegala yesterday, the minister affirmed that the government is moving forward with the agreement with the approval of the Attorney General and that the FTA became effective on the 1st of May.
A program to educate small and medium-scale entrepreneurs on the program Enterprise Sri Lanka was held under the patronage of Minister Malik Samaravikrama in Kurunegala yesterday.
There is no issue and we are working on the agreement. If there are any issues, we can face them in the future. Yes, it has been in effect since the 1st of May. No, we're going forward with it with the approval of the Attorney General. I have repeated that several times. By signing this agreement, we are able to enter a market which is worth around 4 billion, to which we can export duty-free. Singapore has signed around 20 more agreements of this nature with other countries. Signing such an agreement with Singapore means we get the opportunity to enter into around 20 such agreements. We have to be ready for the competition. What we have noticed is that people in Sri Lanka are afraid of competition. If we are not ready for that, we can't develop.
The FTA with Singapore has been a flashpoint of late on the political platform, and views on the agreement was forthcoming today as well.
The President appointed a parliamentary committee on the free trade agreement signed with Singapore, and if it highlights any unfavourable conditions to Sri Lanka, we will not hesitate to oppose it. There are different clauses in the agreement. It can be debatable for some sections in the society, but around 90% are not debatable. Therefore, the probe is only on those clauses. There is no use in criticising the entire agreement.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna, Professor G.L. Pieris, cast doubt over the government's conviction on the agreement it has inked with Singapore. Speaking to First at 9 today, Professor Pieris characterised the move by the government to appoint an expert committee on the much-debated FTA as a sign of doubt brought on by the arbitrary action taken without considering the consequences.
The problem with the present government's approach to free trade agreements is that it is done entirely in an ad hoc manner, without proper thought, without considering the consequences of what is done, without a proper study, and indeed in a very irresponsible manner. Now take the most recent example. The free trade agreement with Singapore is signed in January this year, that is 8 months ago. It is signed, and according to the minister in charge of the subject, it is now in the process of being implemented. Now late in the day, in August, as late as August, this year. A committee is appointed to go into the deficiencies and shortcomings in the agreement. What is the sense in appointing a committee to go into the substantive provisions of an agreement 8 months after the agreement is signed? There are horrendous disparities. There is no equality or reciprocity reflected in the agreement at all with regard to the land area to be covered in the two jurisdictions. I mean, the very fact that government has thought it necessary to appoint a high-powered committee 8 months after the agreement has been signed necessarily means that the government is having second thoughts. It knows, it has reason to believe that there are serious problems. If so, those problems should have been addressed before the agreement is signed. That stands to reason. So this is what is wrong. There's no policy, knee-jerk reactions.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is critical of the media, alleging that media failed to give due publicity to government's accomplishments. Addressing an event in Derana of Matara today, the Premier added, even though the government is accused of tax hikes, it has successfully managed to stabilise the economy. An event to hand over title deeds to 1,000 families to celebrate 3 years of the government of good governance coming to power, which coincided with the 25-year anniversary of the Paskuda Divisional Secretariat, was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in Urubokka today.
This is a government that works. We work on the ground and not on television. Anyway, the television does not show what we do. If the so-called king was in power, they would telecast everything he does. But they don't do it for us. I'll tell you about the Ministry of Highways, which was under former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. After we came to power, he paid compensation amounting to 40 billion rupees for land he took over. Out of 55 villages developed, the development in 28 was done arbitrarily. Our government and the people of this country have to pay this debt. When we came to power in 2015 under President Sirisena, we stopped this country from being bankrupt. We had to control our expenses, increased VAT and got scolded by the public as a result. You wanted to know whether this is the change you voted for and defeated us in the local authorities election. But today we are stable. Today we can pay debt. And I can be bold and say that we are moving forward.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa intends to explore the grounds to contest the upcoming presidential election. Responding to questions raised by journalists following an event held in Piliyandala, the former president expressed his intention to get clarification from the Supreme Court on the possibility of a former president who had 2 terms in office contesting for a 3rd term.
The Suwasitha Pharmaceutical Centre in Piliyandala was declared open under the patronage of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa today.
When we developed the country up to a certain standard during our tenure, we also made plans to control the usage of weedicides and pesticides. Venerable Ratanathera was with us back then, but he switched sides after some time and ruined his political career. The Thera never listened to what we had to say. Anyway, there will be public opposition if we implement something suddenly and without considering any alternatives. I believe these proposed decisions would have worked if the government introduced alternatives.
Following the event, the former president also expressed views to media.
Yes, there is a consensus that I can. It will be applicable to all former presidents as well. We will decide later whether to contest or not, but we must make sure that we are eligible first. Well, they need to sling mud at us. So that's exactly what they did through the CID. I'm involved in an incident that took place during my tenure. No one knows who's responsible in these incidents. It is true that I was informed of it, and I did my part by instructing the police to look into the matter. Isn't that the duty of the police? I've had so many things to look into.
The The Minister of Defence of Japan, Itsunori Onodera, is set to visit Sri Lanka from the 20th to the 22nd of August. It will mark the first ever visit of a Japanese Defence Minister to the island nation. During his stay, Minister Onodera will hold Japan-Sri Lanka Defence Minister consultations with State Minister of Defence Ruwan Wijewardena, as well as call on the hierarchy of the Sri Lankan government. Issuing a media communique, the Embassy of Japan said that this visit would help further consolidate the comprehensive partnership between Japan and Sri Lanka. International media, however, reported that he is also set to discuss Japanese assistance for Sri Lankan Navy. Foreign media say the visiting minister is planning to have field visits outside Colombo, including the Hambantota port. Minister of Buddha Sasana Gaminija Wickramaperera promises to investigate allegations levelled by Venerable Omalpe Sobhita Thera on the new radio drama series launched by the Office of National Unity and Reconciliation. The Thera alleges that the drama series insults Buddhism and insists that it be pulled off air.
The Office of National Unity and Reconciliation, chaired by former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, launched a radio drama series named Kanataparak recently. Following its announcement on the official website of ONUR, Venerable Omalpe Sobhita Thera accused that the particular drama series insults Buddhist concepts and values.
They have produced 10 dramas and Buddhist values are insulted by some of the names of these dramas. They have taken some of the Buddhist phrases to portray ideas that are vastly contrasting. This drama series is being produced under the supervision of former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga.
හිටපු ජනාධිපති චන්ද්‍රිකා බණ්ඩාරනායක මැතිණියගේ ඒ අනුශාසකත්වය යටතේ.
Following other Derana's inquiries on the matter, Minister of Buddha Sasana Gaminija Wickramaperera said that instructions are given to launch an investigation and take necessary legal action regarding the incident. Meanwhile, following an event held today, the minister also revealed that action will be taken to ban private tuition classes on Sundays and Poya days.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training, Dr. Saratha Murugama, recognizes a crisis in the country since the traditional education system cannot meet the increasing demands of the growing economy. Speaking at an event held in Colombo recently, he noted the importance of an alternative education system in the country.
But we have reached a critical stage because the formal educational system cannot answer the developmental needs of this country. Though we have made a very heavy investment to which every single citizen of this country has contributed, we are now reaching a crisis in our society. If you look at the formal educational system, which is largely based on liberal arts tradition, it cannot meet the demands of our growing economy. Only 30,000 students enter the university every year, but the number of young boys and girls who have reached that age of eligibility are very, very much more. So it is the responsibility of our country, which is expressed through my ministry, to create an alternate educational system for all those who may not have gone to university but can be picked up by our other alternate educational system. So our secret wish is to give a good run to the university system of Sri Lanka. We will create another technological stream in Sri Lanka, technological system that will not only compete with the university system, but I think, looking at you, I'm quite sure we will be able to surpass the university system that is in existence in this country.
Convener of the Patriotic Professionals Forum, Dr. Nalaka Godeheva, laments Colombo's slide in the Global Livability Index. Sri Lanka was placed 124th in the index last year, and in the year that followed, the island nation has slipped down to 130th. Addressing a media briefing today, Dr. Godeheva warned that if Sri Lanka goes down by at least one more point from where the country is, it will be one of the least livable cities in the world.
Sri Lanka seems to be going down in the rankings amongst the rest of the world in many areas. One of the recent examples is the standing of Colombo as a livable city as per a survey conducted by the Economics magazine. Now, this magazine conducts a survey to identify the most livable cities in the world every year. It is sad to see that in 2017 to 2018, Sri Lanka's ranking has slipped from 124th position to 130th. If it goes down one more point, Colombo will be amongst the 10 worst cities in the whole world. We remember in 2014 a similar survey conducted by MasterCard, where the city of Colombo was rated the fastest growing city in the whole of Asia. In fact, it was the former Secretary to the Ministry of Urban Development, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who pioneered that effort to make Colombo a beautiful city. Now, today, we can see despite all the rhetorics of the ministers of the current government, the situation has completely reversed. We are going down. And the question is, where will we end up at this rate?
For the first time in Sri Lanka's history, a student was granted permission to sit for the local advanced level examination whilst being stationed abroad. Sima Akalangapiris, who is a student of St. Peter's College in Bambalapitiya, is currently in Indonesia to compete in the 18th Asian Games. Akalangapiris, who is a student of St. Peter's College, is a youth with many accomplishments. He currently holds 3 national records in the 50-meter back, 100-meter back and 50-meter butterfly events. However, Akalanka, who is currently in Indonesia, is not only faced with the pressure of competing in the Asian Games in Jakarta, Indonesia, but also the advanced level examination. The Sri Lanka swimmer will be taking on the 50-meter butterfly and 100-meter backstroke at the Games. It is in this backdrop the Ministry of Education made necessary arrangements to allow Akalanka to sit for the advanced level examination at the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Indonesia. This makes him the first Sri Lankan athlete to take on the national examination overseas. 2 officers from the Department of Education were sent to Indonesia as invigilators, where Akalanka is due to sit for the General English and Accounting paper.
This is the first time we have allowed a student to sit for a national examination paper overseas. We have established an examination centre at the Sri Lankan Embassy in Indonesia for the next 3 days. I'm facing the advanced level examination and Asian Games at the same time. On the 20th, I have the General English paper and I am to compete in an event. This is the first time such an opportunity was granted. I wish to thank everyone who provided their support.
On your biz tonight, agreement on avoidance of double taxation and prevention of fiscal evasion was struck between Sri Lanka and Oman during the second meeting of the Sri Lanka-Oman bilateral consultations at senior officials level held on Wednesday in Colombo. Now, the Sri Lankan delegation to the bilateral consultations was led by Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Prasad Karivasam, while the delegation of the Oman was headed by the Under-Secretary for Diplomacy and Chief Master's Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Oman, Mahmoud Awad Al-Hassan. Issuing media communique yesterday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs added that during the meeting, Sri Lanka and Oman reaffirmed the commitment to further consolidate and advance bilateral political and economic cooperation. The 2 sides also agreed to conclude an agreement on promotion and reciprocal protection of investments at the earliest and to consider entering into a MOU of skills development and mutual recognition of qualifications to facilitate mobility of skilled workers from Sri Lanka to Oman. The Eurozone passes an important milestone on the 20th of August. The date marks the formal end of the bailout of Greece. It is the final country to be receiving emergency loans in the wake of Europe's financial crisis. The last payment has been made and the Greek government will have to finance its spending through taxes or by borrowing in the financial markets, though it will be decades before it is all repaid. 5 countries received bailout loans: Greece, Ireland, Portugal, Spain and Cyprus. And the most intense points of the crisis, there were genuine doubts about whether the Eurozone would survive or at the very least whether some countries would drop out. Sri Lanka's biggest international kite festival, organised by the team Lokya Saha Lokyo in collaboration with TV Derana, will be held tomorrow at the Golf Face Green. This year's festival has drawn 40 foreign participants from 10 countries. First at night, Sheila Fernando was at the venue today, witnessing competitors and their preparations ahead of tomorrow's competition.
The annual International Kite Festival, organised by Team Loke Sahalokyo in collaboration with TV Derana, is scheduled to be held tomorrow right here at the Golf Face Green from 9 a.m. onwards. Well, known as the biggest international kite festival in Sri Lanka, this event is organised for the 4th consecutive year by TV Derana. Well, international participation in this year's kite festival is rife, and they can be seen doing some last-minute fine-tuning to their gear as well as their skills. Well, we invite you to the Golf Face Green tomorrow and spend your Sunday being a part of this unique festival. The biggest international kite festival in Sri Lanka, Derana International Kite Festival, drew 3,000 contestants this year. 40 foreign competitors from 10 countries including Nepal, Brunei, Malaysia, Thailand, Norway, China, Macau, Taiwan, India and Singapore are competing in this year's event. Many artists introduced through the reality shows of TV Derana, including Little Star and Dream Star, are set to perform tomorrow. Meanwhile, preparations are in place to stage the grand musical show, which will be held after the Kite Festival. The Kite Festival will be telecast live from 4:30 p.m. onwards on TV Derana tomorrow.
We will cross over to a short commercial break and join you with some international news on the other side.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Cricketer turned politician Imran Ahmad Khan Niazi was sworn in as Pakistan's 22nd Prime Minister today after his party emerged victorious in last month's election tainted by the alleged military intervention. Prime Minister Imran Khan declared victory a day after the election and said he was ready to lead the nuclear-armed nation despite a long delay in ballot counting and allegations of vote rigging from his main opponents. The long-time opposition politician takes the reins of power for the first time in his 22-year political career, having led a strenuous campaign against corruption and government mismanagement since he retired as one of Pakistan's most popular cricketer in 1992.
To become a leader, you have to face resistance. We have puppets sitting there who are manipulated by superpowers for their own ends. This is the biggest trap. People fail when they compromise on their dreams and their vision.
By the early 1980s, Khan has distinguished himself as an exceptional bowler and all-rounder, and he was named captain of Pakistan team in 1982. In 1992, Khan achieved his greatest athletic success when he led the Pakistan team to its first World Cup title, defeating England in the final. He retired that same year, having secured a reputation as one of the greatest cricket players in history. After his retirement from cricket, Khan became an outspoken critic of government mismanagement and corruption in Pakistan. He founded his own political party Tehreek-e-Insaf in 1996 and stepped into politics. In spite of Tehreek-e-Insaf's struggles in elections, Khan's populist position found support, especially among young people. Imran Khan contested for the position of Prime Minister and declared victory a day after the election, despite a long delay in ballot counting and allegations of vote rigging from his main opponents. Khan was elected as the Prime Minister by Parliament on Friday as his party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, swept the election, vowing to bring an era of accountability and prosperity to the country. PTI won the most seats in the July 25th election but fell short of an outright majority. It allied with independents to form a coalition. In the National Assembly, Imran Khan secured 176 votes on Friday, beating Shehbaz Sharif, president of the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, who got 96.
प्लीज अपनी सीटों पे तशरीफ रखें। इमरान अहमद नियाजी साहब ने 176 वोट हासिल किए।
The PTI's election victory was marred by widespread allegations of irregularities in the vote counting process, and opposition parties on Friday decried the results as unacceptable. In his speech, Khan welcomed any investigation into the election results, saying he would support the process.
सबसे पहले हमने कड़ा एहतसाब करना है। वो लोग जिन लोगों ने इस मुल्क को लूटा, मकलूज किया, मैं ये आज वादा करता हूँ, अल्लाह के सामने करता हूँ कि इनको एक-एक आदमी को नहीं छोड़ूंगा।
Pakistan President Mamnoon Hussain administered the oath at a ceremony in the capital Islamabad today, where political and military leaders, former sports stars and diplomats participated.
On a somber note, Nobel Peace Prize winner and the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan passes away today at the age of 80. Kofi Annan was the first black African to take up the role of the world's top diplomat, serving 2 terms from 1997 to 2006.
Kofi Annan, who was born in Ghana in 1938, served as the 7th UN Secretary General from 1997 to 2006 and was the first to rise from within the ranks of the United Nations staff. He served as Secretary General at a time when worries about the Cold War were replaced by threats of global terrorism, and his efforts to combat those threats and secure a more peaceful world brought him the Nobel Peace Prize. He had also been a member since 2007 of the Elders, a humanitarian group of a dozen leaders and activists of worldwide stature formed by Nelson Mandela. Annan also became its chairman in 2013. The Kofi Annan Foundation confirmed his death with immense sadness in a statement posted on Twitter.
Up next is your City by City forecast.
Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
And that is it from Derana First at 9 for tonight, and we will take you to Venezuela, where you meet the Angel Falls. This is the world's highest uninterrupted waterfall with a height of 979 meters and a plunge of 807 meters. Take a moment and enjoy the Mother Nature. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.